Good evening, Who Dat Nation, and happy Wednesday, Bayou Blitz family. I hope everybody is having a good week out there. Uh, our New Orleans Saints are 0-2, coming into a Week 3 matchup on the road for the first time this year against the Seattle Seahawks. And here to break down everything that happened in Week 2 and everything that we think is going to happen in Week 3 are myself, Bob Rose, and him, Brendan Boylan. Together, we make up your Bayou Blitz podcast. And happy Wednesday, Mr. Boylan. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing okay. I hope you are. It's kind of weird. You're starting to get some fall weather. My sinuses certainly feel that the weather is changing. Hopefully, some of you are not getting it as bad as I have. But it's an interesting time for the Saints, depending on how you want to evaluate things and what your expectations were headed into the year, I think, as well. Because if you want to play the optimist or the hopeful, you say, well, the Saints are 0-2, but both won score ball games. But we saw improvement from week 1 to week 2 on the offensive side of the ball. But Carl Granderson is tied for first in the league in sacks, despite not having Chase Young on the other side, right? Like there's a lot of different ways you could flip it that way. Now, on the opposite side, you could sit there and look at it a little bit more negatively and say, well, the Saints still don't for sure have a quarterback situation figured out. Well, Chris Olave hasn't lived up to expectations, and the secondary is abysmal and young, and Chase Young still not playing, and what about Trevor Penning? And I mean, you could go for it. Depends which Saints fan you want to be and which angle you want to take to talk about the 0-2 team. So for the first bit of tonight's podcast, I do want to do that, and I want to start on the hopeful side, Bob. And we're going to start with Robert Saleh's comments post-game about Spencer Rattler. And the quote that really jumped out to me from a guy like Robert Saleh, who, yes, maybe not the most accomplished head coach in the league, but certainly one of the more well-respected defensive coaches in football. And I think it is safe to say one of the better defensive coaches in all of football. So Saleh comes out and says something along the lines of, by the end of the season, he, as in Rattler, will be a household name. That's really high praise for a guy who was a 5th-round pick a year ago, has yet to win an NFL start.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just Saleh who made comments. You go back and you listen to the broadcast on Sunday, and it was the Niners defense. Guys like Bosa were making comments. Some of the guys in the linebacking corps were talking about how they had to prepare for the unique talent of Spencer Rattler. So my question to you, Bob, when you hear those type of comments coming from a coach of that pedigree, what are your initial thoughts? And two, how much are you putting into those comments moving forward with Spencer Rattler? Because when we talked last on Sunday post-game, we both agreed we still think that Tyler Shuck's going to get his opportunity. We don't know when, but it'll be at some point this year. So how much are you putting into those comments, and what do you think of the comments as a whole?
Well, I mean, I still stand by by my belief that Tyler Shuck is going to get his opportunity to start this year. But the reality is, if Spencer Rattler keeps playing the way he's playing, he's probably going to hold off Shuck for a while. Because I'm seeing a large chunk of the Saints social media. Praising Rattler, talking about him like, the Saints have finally found their quarterback. I'm staying quiet, but internally, I'm just like, he's not playing that good. He has surpassed a lot of our expectations, including myself. And he's playing solid football. Um, and I think if he continues to play this way, he will hold off Shuck at least for a while. It's going to be a big road test, for him against the Seattle Seahawks, this coming Sunday, which we'll get into in a little bit. But to hear, a respected defensive coach like Saleh, or respected defensive players like D. Winters and Bosa, you said, and others. I agree with them to a certain extent. I mean, I think Spencer Rattler has at least proven that he has the tools to stick on an NFL roster. Again, my opinion, I still don't view him as a long-term solution as the starting quarterback. If he continues to develop, though, he could prove me wrong, and I certainly hope he does. Because if he does, or if he doesn't, and Shuck steps in and he does, either way, as long as the Saints have an answer to the quarterback position for the next handful of years, by the end of this season, I'm a happy guy. Because that gets a major need and concern crossed off of the list. I personally still have my doubts that Spencer Rattler can be that guy, but he's already shown, in my opinion, so much better pocket awareness than what he did as a rookie, what he did throughout college. His abilities to read a defense are still so in my view, at best, but he's not making back-breaking mistakes. I think Kellen Moore and the game plan are helping him not make mistakes by keeping him handcuffed to a certain extent. But even if you aren't a Rattler supporter, I don't think you can deny after 2 games that the kid is a competitor. He's a gutsy player. He's a good enough athlete to make plays either with his legs or out of the pocket and make throws on the run. And his teammates seem to respect and respond to him. And as a quarterback, that's a major plus on your side when your teammates and people in that huddle with you respond to you and are there to play with you. But like I said, Rattler has a big test this week against Seattle. Not only because it's a rugged Seattle defense, a very good Seattle defense, but I mean, Rattler's numbers last year were just not good. His numbers on the road in three games were even worse. 55.2% completion percentage, average of only 183 yards a game. He was sacked 8 times, engineered the team to only 27 points total, including 1 touchdown in 27 drives. Those numbers have to come up, and they have to come up this week. He's still, if you believe he's playing good, you still can't overlook the fact that he's not getting the team into the end zone enough. Now, Chris Olave dropped an easy touchdown throw, against the 49ers, which probably would have changed the outcome of that game. Certainly would have down the stretch. So it's plays like that. The Rattlers teammates have to step up and help him more. Along the offensive line, the receivers, the play calling, the game plan, et cetera. But and I feel like I'm being maybe overly critical of Spencer Rattler, but that's the part of me that's just saying to those people that are anointing him, as the Saints have found recording, well, wait a minute, he still has a lot to prove. But I still acknowledge that Rattler has developed tremendously from the rookie, the struggling rookie that we saw. And I believe that if he has the tool, that he's shown the tools, that if he continues to develop, he could very well hold on to this starting job.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it over the summer a little bit, that in order for Spencer Rattler to win the starting job, we had to see a pretty critical leap from year 1 to year 2. It's very evident that he has made that jump. I think that it is evidence in the film. He is a lot more comfortable. He works the pocket pretty well. there was some slippage issues this past week, not just for Rattler, but for a couple guys on
Yeah,
the offensive side.
yeah.
Or it just seemed like they couldn't get their footing. And maybe that affects a throw or two, or maybe that affects the ability for Rattler to climb the pocket and maybe scramble, right? I'm not ready to crown him or anoint him the Saints starting quarterback for the rest of the year or for the years to come. But I do think he's even surpassed my expectations through 2 weeks. Now, is the team still very difficult to watch on the offensive side? Yes. It is not as fun as it used to be. And I was very close to tweeting something out during the first half. Like, you guys remember when we were consistently scoring 30 points a game? Wasn't that fun? We all missed that to an extent. But I do think this offense has an opportunity to continue to grow, and I think it is a good test in week 3 for this offense. Right? I think the Niners defense is good. I don't think they're talked about enough as being one of the top tier defenses in football. But Seattle has smothered wide receivers, not really allowed anybody to have a good game or a massive game against them through 2 weeks. You're playing in front of the 12th man. Seattle's not an easy place to play. I think it's a really good test. But before we dive into that test, defensively, Bob, we were pretty critical of 2 positions in particular, that being the secondary, the young secondary. And if we want to single out players, we can. Isaac Yiadom, we were very critical of on Sunday, along with Pete Warner in space. Having an opportunity to digest it a little bit, maybe watch some of the film back. Are you still as critical and disappointed of their performances from Sunday? And 2, what adjustments need to be made for both of those spots moving forward? I'm already seeing people scream for Danny Stutzman. I don't think people realize that would be a very equilateral move in terms of play styles, in terms of what you're going to get. And for Isaac Yiadom, I don't think anybody's really looked at the depth chart for people that are calling for Isaac Yiadom and just going, well, that's great, but who's going to play there? It could be a rookie, but it's not like you're bringing in somebody with a boatload of experience to go out there and just play better. So again, what are your short, maybe long-term solutions for those 2 spots in particular?
Well, and yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, Brendan, because this afternoon on the Saints Wire, I wrote an article outlining exactly that, and I threw Cesar Ruiz under the bus too, because Ruiz, Warner, and Yiadom I highlighted as 3 players who I believe must be replaced now. So to answer your question, I'm probably more critical, after rewatching the game 2 times, since Sunday's debacle for those 3. Ruiz, we've gone over and over, and I don't feel like turning this into a Cesar Ruiz bashing session. His play, his abysmal play speaks for itself. And in my opinion, when Trevor Penning is back healthy, and if Dylan Radins is healthy, because he didn't practice today with a foot injury, once you get both those guys healthy, you need to sit Ruiz down and play Penning and Dylan at guard. My opinion. On the defensive side, I'll start with Yiadom. The numbers have been awful. Against San Francisco, we all saw what happened against San Francisco. 2 costly penalties. The 49ers targeted him 5 times with 5 completions for 91 yards. That's ludicrous. Because I like Ricky Pearsall as a receiver. Juwan Jennings is an okay receiver. But nobody's gonna mistake them for top tier wideouts. Same with Kendrick Bourne. Isaac Yiadom has to do a better job. And more so, this wasn't just one bad outing against San Francisco. We saw him struggle throughout the preseason. And if you lump in the numbers against Arizona, opponents have targeted him 10 times this year with 9 completions. Yiadom has yet to have a pass breakup, let alone an interception, and he's been responsible for 3 penalties. Not all 3 have been accepted, but 3 penalties nonetheless. You need better play out of your cornerback unit. At least Kool-Aid McKinstry bounced back after a rough outing against Arizona. Kool-Aid bounced back with a better outing, and pretty solid outing actually, against the 49ers. So much so that San Francisco really isolated Yiadom as much as they could and threw at him. Expect Seattle, with Smith and Jigba or Cooper Kupp to do the same exact thing. But like you said, it's not like the Saints have a lot of options on the depth chart here. My solution would be to either A, play Alontae Taylor more at outside corner to limit Yiadom's reps. But if you do that, Alontae's your best slot guy. And we all know that Taylor plays his best when he's moved around the secondary, moved around the defense. So you're almost cutting off your nose to spite your face if you do take that option. The other option, you mentioned rookie and inexperience. The other option is to go with the rookie Quincy Riley, who has yet to play a defensive snap this year, by the way. With that, if you do that, Riley is still going to get targeted because of the inexperience, and there's going to be some major growing pains fans. But my feeling on it is, if you're not getting the play out of Yiadom, you already know what you have there. You've accepted whether you, the Saints, want to admit this out loud or not. You've clearly accepted the fact that you're rebuilding to a certain extent by playing young guys in other positions. Why not do the same thing with Quincy Riley? At least find out what you have here, so that way going into the off season, how big a need cornerback really is. If Quincy Riley turns out to be a player, then that reduces that need significantly. But you don't know that, and with Yiadom, you know what you have, and it hadn't been good. That 2023 season that he had, which was a very good one, when he had to step up as an injury replacement, that feels more like an aberration now, like the exception, than the player Isaac actually is. And at linebacker, Pete Werner has been a solid player, unspectacular, but a solid player for 4 years leading up to this. But you've always known that Werner struggles in space and is a downright liability in pass coverage. And we saw this a lot last year, where opponents have figured this out. And they probably figured out a long time ago, but they figured out by last year how to isolate him in those situations and take advantage of it. The Saints' response to that, leaving Pete Werner on the field for 90% of their defensive snaps. Guys, that ain't going to cut it. I'm not saying dump Werner. I suggested dumping Ruiz, benching him altogether. I suggested similar to Yiadom. I don't think you do that with Pete Werner, because he's still a very good run defender, pretty instinctive around the line of scrimmage in the tackle box. But what the hell is he doing on the field when an offense comes out in a spread formation, or and especially in obvious passing situations? I'm hearing the cries for Danny Stutzman too, and I love Danny Stutzman. I think that Stutzman is probably the heir apparent to Demario Davis. But again, just like with Quincy Riley, Danny Stutzman has yet to play a defensive snap this season. Why? If you know Pete Werner struggles, and I agree with you, Brendan, you're not getting an athletic upgrade when you go from Pete Werner to Danny Stutzman here. Stutzman is at his best an in the box defender, downhill run stuffer, gap shooter. You probably don't want him in space very much, but You have Jalen Ford, who was very, very good in pass coverage in Texas. You have Isaiah Stallbird, who was a safety throughout half of his college career before converting to linebacker. Very athletic. Neither Ford or Stallbird has seen a defensive snap this year either. Why? As I wrote in that article on Saints Wire, a couple times within the article, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. You keep churning out Cesar Ruiz and wondering why your running back's getting nailed 4 yards in the backfield or your quarterback's running for his life. That's what you get with Cesar Ruiz. You keep trotting out Isaac Yiadom and wondering why opponents are completing 9 out of 10 throws, and getting first downs at will. You have Pete Werner on the field in passing situations and wondering why. Yeah, why is Pete getting beat 20 yards down the field? Because he can't cover. It's the definition of insanity, folks. And you have options at guard. You have an option at cornerback, and you have multiple options at linebacker. Use them, because you're not going to get any better with maybe Ruiz, it turns it on. Werner all of a sudden becomes the next Demario Davis, in coverage, and Yiadom proves or shows us that 2023 is the actual player he is, and not 2024, 2025, or the journeyman he was before that 2023 season. Maybe all that happens, but I doubt it. Maybe I win the lottery twice before the end of the week. I doubt it. So again, the Saints have options here. I'd like to see them explore those options.
Well, if you win the lottery twice this week, just make sure you send some money down to Charlotte. That's all I'm asking.
I will.
Okay. And same to you, my friend. If I win the lottery, I got you. I'll drive up. I'll hand deliver it. Unfortunately, I don't think changes are going to get made. I think this is one of those years, right, where I don't want to call it a feeling out process, but this is very much a let's see what we have. This as a coach or a former coach. Anytime a regime takes over, high school, college, professional, that first year is we're going to keep it the exact same way as it was, and we're going to see what works and we're going to see what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And rolling into year 2, you get to put your fingerprints and your DNA on everything. I would say that's the case 90% of the time.
Agreed.
Especially in college, right? Because you're talking about recruiting and all that stuff. You don't get to control who was recruited before you got there. Similar in the pros. You don't get to control what the previous regime drafted, signed, re-signed, or anything. So I really do think this is just going to be something you ride it out for the year.
But here's the thing, Brandon, and I do agree with you. Especially week 3, making changes, especially a guy like Werner or Ruiz, who have been longtime starters, it almost feels like pressing the panic button.
Yep.
But again, exploring the options you have. Kellen Moore, your regime, you drafted Quincy Riley. You drafted Danny Stutzman. You signed Torricelli Simpkins as a rookie free agent. So you talk about fingerprints. Your fingerprints are already there. They're under the sheet of paper. They're not there to be visible yet. And again, none of these guys have yet to play an NFL snap in the regular season, on offense or defense. So while I agree with you that week 3, I don't expect to see any of those changes in week 3. But if the struggles continue for any or all 3 of them, the changes need to be made sooner rather than later. I'm not suggesting Kellen Moore would lose the locker room if he doesn't. But if you look throughout the rest of the roster, you've made some tough decisions already. Kellen Moore as the first time ever head coach, he has to show, in my opinion, he has to show that he is willing to make those tough decisions. Longtime starter or not, if you're not playing well, I will find someone who is. That's the kind of coach that earns respect in the locker room, not only for the players there, but when you're recruiting free agents, when you're talking to potential draftees in the offseason. Week three, these changes going to be made? No, I agree with you. But I'm throwing them out there because if the poor play continues, the changes have to be made if this team is going to improve during the course of the year.
I see these changes happening once the Saints have been eliminated from playoff contention. And then you get to just start playing around with lineups and seeing what you have. Right. And if Spencer Rattler ends up playing super well, going back to our initial conversation, he plays well and holds off Shuck, I wouldn't see Shuck getting a chance until once the season's essentially over and being like, hey, Spence, we're going to sit you down. We're just going to see what Tyler's got. Take the week off, buddy. You earned it. Let's talk about week 3 a little bit. I do want to keep this one a little shorter than normal. Our friend Bob is recovering over there. I have multiple trips over the next couple of days, including the farthest west I've ever been. Right, going all the way out to Seattle, ironically, but it will not be for the game. I'll be flying in the day after. But I digress. Let's talk about that game out in Seattle. We already alluded to the Seattle defense being very good, maybe not Legion of Boom good, but seeing some flashes in the pan so far from them. But I do want to focus on the offense because this offense is mighty different than what people remember, right? No more DK Metcalf. He was traded to Pittsburgh. No more Geno Smith. He's out in Las Vegas, throwing the ball away on 4th down. So play. You don't have the dominant running game that you did 5-7 years ago. But Kenneth Walker is a talented kid, very talented kid, and I think has the ability to pop off. You already alluded to JSN, up and comer at wide receiver. You already alluded to Cooper Kupp. I'm not going to get used to him outside of a Rams jersey anytime soon. It's going to look weird. But when he's healthy, even at the age that he's at this point, I mean, he's one of the best, if not the best, possession receiver in football. But this is not the same Seattle team offensively that we saw over the last few years, and those teams that I think surprised a lot of people with Geno Smith and how good they really were. But they spend some money on Sam Darnold, a guy that I know you love so much. What can we expect out of this Seattle offense against the Saints defense that has had some moments, but has also had some moments? If you're catching the drift here.
Well, I mean, the Seattle offense is coordinated by an old friend, Clint Kubiak. Whether that's an advantage or disadvantage, I am not sure. But Clint is going to come at your defense with different formations. A lot of pretty packaging, but at the end of the day, Clint Kubiak wants to run the football. And the Seattle Seahawks are a very physical offense. You mentioned Kenneth Walker. They also have a very good number 2 back in Zach Charbonnet. If he's able to play, Zach did not practice today. He's dealing with a foot injury. So we'll monitor his status during the course of the week. But even if it's just Walker is a 1,000-yard caliber back. And I believe he had over 100 yards against a pretty good Pittsburgh Steelers defense on the road last week. So again, that Clint is going to want to run the football, and they have an offensive line, especially 2 big athletic tackles in Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas. They are just road graders. The Saints are going to be challenged to stop the run first and foremost. They have to stop the run, or they do not win this football game, folks. Now if they do, Sam Darnold has two really good wide receivers in Jackson Smith-Njigba and Cooper Kupp. So again, very challenging for the Saints corners, Kool-Aid McKinstry and especially Isaac Yiadom, and throw Alante Taylor into that mix too. AJ Barner, looks like an underrated tight end. He's made some plays for the Seahawks in these first 2 weeks. But I keep coming around to who their quarterback is. Not that Geno Smith is a world beater. I mean, hell, far from it. But Sam Darnold, I described Sam Darnold in my article today as, in my preview, one of my preview articles to be released on Saints Wire tomorrow. I described Sam Darnold, and I'm quoting myself, as barely average at best. That's on Sam Darnold's good days. So you have to strip Darnold of a running game, make them one-dimensional, and then you take away easy throws to Smith-Njigba and Cooper Kupp. That forces Darnold to revert back to very questionable decision-making and allows your pass rush that extra second and a half to maybe get home, because Sam Darnold will throw it to the other team. If he's pressured, if he's flustered, if his first two quick reads aren't there. But the thing with Clint Kubiak's offense, the Kubiak-Shanahan system is set up so the quarterback has bam, 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 3 quick reads and then progressions. If you take away those top 2 reads, those 2 wideouts, Sam Darnold becomes worse than ordinary. And the Saints have a real opportunity to win this game if they take away his running game and they take away the easy, quick throws to those 2 receivers, JSN and Cooper Kupp.
It's going to be easier said than done, especially with Cooper Kupp. I was a big fan of
even JSN. I mean, JSN has 17 catches for 223 yards already this year. Those are really good numbers.
Yeah, and he's going to be a really good receiver. Ohio State is definitely becoming a wide receiver. You and I were both big fans of Clint Kubiak when the hire was made during the very short stint in New Orleans. But he's going to come up with game plans on how to get the ball to Cooper Kupp early, and how to get the ball to JSN. Right. One thing we've been begging the Saints to do is get playmakers in space. Seattle's got 2 really good playmakers at wide receiver, and I know Kubiak's going to find ways to get him the football.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely put it up there on a platter for you, talking about how much you like Sam Darnold. I think Sam's got an interesting situation. I don't want to talk about Seattle way too much, but I think it's an interesting situation because I do think he fooled a lot of people last year when he was in Minnesota, put up good numbers, and then it got to the playoffs and was, in your words, kind of reverted back to the norm. I'm just curious, after you spend all that money to bring him in to Seattle, can he give you something similar to what Minnesota was? And I think what Minnesota was a perfect melting pot of talent for him at multiple spots. And you know as well as I do, when you have a melting pot of talent, you can make one player look like a Pro Bowler. You can make one player look a lot better than they actually are, simply because.
I mean, right, and having Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and T.J. Hawkinson is going to make a lot of quarterbacks look real good.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. Let's talk about the defense a little bit before we hop off of the air. We mentioned this is a good defense. This is a defense that from a fantasy football standpoint, do not start any Saints receivers this week. I'm still going to say if you got Juwan or you picked him up, he's still available in a ton of leagues.
Mm-hmm.
But he's one of the best scoring tight ends through 2 weeks. I'd still give him a shot because he's your bigger target in the red zone. He seems to be the safety net. Bob and I've kind of talked about that. But the Seattle defense has really shut down opposing teams' wideouts. Again, I think anytime you talk about Seattle defenses, the mind immediately goes to the Legion of Boom, which I can't believe we're almost a decade out from at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Decades since the Legion of Boom. This isn't the Legion of Boom, but you are certainly seeing flashes of a defense that could find themselves being in the top 5 this year. What are some things you want to see out of Spencer Rattler in this offense, considering they're playing their toughest defensive opponent to this point?
Well, you know what? As good as the Seattle front 7 is, and they are very good, I do see some vulnerabilities in the secondary. First of all, cornerback Devin Witherspoon and safeties Julian Love and Nick Amaniori. None of those 3 practiced today. Dealing with all dealing with different leg injuries, knee, hamstring, ankle. So again, their status, all 3 of their statuses are worth monitoring. But yeah, even if they play, Seattle's defensive backs are big, physical, but fast and shifty receivers can give them problems. The 49ers' Ricky Pearsall gave them fits in week 1. And the Saints might lack physicality in their receiving core, something that we've highlighted, Brendan, time and time again. But the one thing that they do have is speed and shiftiness. So I see some opportunities for Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, and maybe even Brandon Cooks here. But I agree with you. I wouldn't necessarily start that, any one of those guys in fantasy. Where Seattle has been vulnerable in the passing game are the tight end position, going back to Juwan Johnson, and they're giving up a lot of throws to running backs. Check downs, wheel routes out of the backfield, things like that. So you're asking, how can Rattler be effective? Let's start there. We know he loves to go to Juwan Johnson. We also talked in our post-game show, about Alvin Kamara. Alvin getting 6 receptions, against the 49ers. Though one of them, that fumble, should have been ruled an incomplete pass. But we also want to see Alvin used more and more ways as a receiver. I believe that if Kellen Moore does that, which Kellen Moore doesn't do that a lot with his backs. He likes to rely on receivers and tight ends in the passing game more so than running backs. But he also, any good coach will recognize the talent. Otherwise, you shouldn't be coaching. I hope that Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier recognize how Alvin Kamara can beat the Seattle defense and use him that way. Because the Saints need to establish the run, no doubt about that. But Seattle's only given up 3.4 yards per carry. So that's liable to be some tough sledding. Where you can get Kamara involved and at the second level of the Seattle defense this week is as a receiver. An area again where the Seahawks have been very vulnerable. Ernest Jones, Therese Knight, Shaf Surratt, they're good linebackers. But they've been struggling in coverage, and the numbers bear that out. So I say use Kamara a lot more often out of the backfield. Bring him in motion. Make those linebackers run with him in space, and use Juwan. We know you're going to use Juwan Johnson, but get him involved early. If those 2 things happen, that's going to make the Seattle safeties creep up and cheat a little bit. And especially with their injury issues at the position, that might give you some one-on-one opportunities for your speedsters, Olave and Shaheed, on the outside, and you might be able to hit some big plays down the field, something that I think is a necessity to do this week for the Saints to put points on the scoreboard.
When's the last time we saw a good Texas route from Alvin Kamara? That's what I'm waiting for. isolate him one-on-one with a linebacker and give me a quick cut and just hit him in stride. I just haven't seen one of those in a while. That would be nice.
Yeah.
I think ultimately this is a game where I'm going to look down the sideline a little bit and I'm going to go, hey, Kendre Miller, how would you like twice as many carries as you got last week? Which would allow you to move Alvin Kamara around, take some of the body blows off and give them to another running back. I think that a guy like that could be very important for the Saints this week. Bob, before we talk about our friends that get checked or check out, I'll give you a bold prediction and a score prediction for this game. Bold prediction. Saints defensive touchdown. It's my bold prediction. You talked about rattling Sam Darnold. This is a team that if they can get a guy like Chase Young back, I don't know if it's going to be this week. I hope it's this week. But if you can get a guy like that back or at least cause some extra pressure towards Darnold, I think you're going to have some opportunities to come away with takeaways. And whether it's a scoop and score or a pick six, that's my bold prediction. The Saints are able to get in the end zone defensively. Score prediction, it's going to be a tough one for New Orleans. I'm not going to lie. But if they get a defensive touchdown and they can steal one, I can see this one being a lot closer than my initial thought. But this is going to be the first time this year that I take the opponent. I will take Seattle winning this game by the score of 24-20. Did you have the same one? Did you have the same score?
Exact same score.
That's insane. We don't talk about these things either beforehand.
No, we really don't, folks. Yeah, I have Seattle winning this game 24-20. Yeah, I'm looking at the injuries along the Saints offensive line. Talise Fuaga, dealing with the knee injury and now day to day with a back injury. Dylan out, Penning back at practice on a limited basis. We'll see how that pans out. And unfortunately, Cesar Ruiz still in. That's going to present some problems. I see the Saints having a difficult time running the football. I don't know if Kellen Moore is going to use Alvin Kamara like he should as a receiver. And the Seahawks know that Spencer Rattler leans on Juwan Johnson, in key moments. So it wouldn't surprise me to see a regression in Rattler's numbers this week, as far as he hasn't really turned the ball over. I don't put that fumble at the end of the game necessarily on him. But I could see a couple Rattler turnovers this week. I hope I'm pleasantly surprised because I think that this is a winnable game for the Saints. They're going to be challenged to stop the run. And the interior defenders, we need more noise from them. We need more noise from Davon Godshaw, Nathan Shepard, and Brian Bresee, who's quietly had a good year, but we need Bresee to come up with those finishing plays. That will free up Carl Granderson, Cam Jordan, and hopefully Chase Young if he's able to play. Up in some one-on-one matchups against those fine tackles on the outside. And I don't have much confidence in the Saints secondary right now. Again, I hope I'm proven wrong. But Seattle's not Seattle's a beatable football team. And, going to Seattle is not as daunting a task as it used to be. As a matter of fact, the Saints have won 4 straight in this series, including their last 2 trips to Seattle. And Mike McDonald's squad in his first year last year, the Seahawks were only 3-6 at home, and they lost their home opener to the 49ers. So, in the old days, going to Seattle, you could almost circle that in pen as a loss for your team. Not so much anymore, but the Saints are going to have to play out of the character that they've shown in the first 2 weeks. And for God's sake, start executing on some situational football. Be it special teams, third downs, key key plays to keep drives going on offense or stop drives on defense, momentum turning plays. The Saints have been absolutely awful in the situational football, and that needs to change drastically if you're going to win on the road. I don't see it happening this week, but I see the Seattle Seahawks coming out with a 24-20 win. Now, on the bright side of that, folks, Brendan and I both picked the Saints to win in the first 2 weeks, and we were wrong. I will happily be wrong this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's funny. It only happens probably once a year where we get the same exact prediction to the score. And we got it early, week 3 this year. But like I said, we don't talk about those things. So it's always funny when you work with someone long enough, right? We're 179 episodes in of just this show. That does not count the years we worked together before we started doing the show together. I guess you guys almost your opinions start intertwining a little bit. It's like, I don't know. It's kind of like Venom in Spider-Man 3, where it just, it just spreads. It takes over everything. But with that, Bob, let's talk about our friends at Get Checked or Check Out. They're over at tcynow.org. We talk to you guys about the cruise week in, week out. I don't think we need to necessarily throw that at you guys again this week. You already know. Quick summary. You guys get your own designated part of the boat. You're hanging out with Saints greats, day in and day out. There's a picture of Bob with, it looks like, if I can see that, with Will and some of those guys, our friends, Tyrone Hughes, Courtney Roby. You're talking about Delvin Breaux, Pierre Thomas, the beer man, Mike Lewis. Those are all the guys that have confirmed already. Or am I missing somebody?
Nope, those are the 5 that are confirmed. Okay. Waiting on a couple other. There will be a couple others, and like Brendan said, we get our own part of the boat. I'm already booked. Matter of fact, my cabin's already paid off. I wanted to get that out of the way. You don't need to pay off your cabin though right away. You could just make a down payment, to hold it, and then pay it. It doesn't have to be paid off until January. And this year's cruise is from March 26th through March 30th. This year it's sailing out of Jacksonville instead of New Orleans. However, if you're coming from the Gulf Coast region, there are packages available where all of you leave New Orleans together, and travel to Jacksonville. Get a hold of me if you're curious about information on that. That's getting run through Shireen DeWalt, the co-founder of Get Checked or Check Out. And she'll have some information available on those packages. I know I'm flying into Jacksonville, directly. But yeah, the cruise is sailing out of Jacksonville on March 26th. The duration of the cruise will be until March 30th. And our destination this year is the Bahamas, which I'm extremely excited about. It's a Carnival cruise line, and you can book now. With Summer Cochran through 7 Seas Travel. Summer's number is 985-643-6958. That's her cell. So you can either text or call, whichever is easier for you. Summer's great to deal with. Shireen is great to deal with. When you book, and please book soon. But when you book, make sure you mention Brendan and myself, and particularly the Bayou Blitz. And Summer will know exactly how to take care of you. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We're celebrities here. But yes, all joking aside, the Bayou Blitz, we are very proud, to work with Get Checked or Check Out, and check out their website, tcynow.org, for donation or promotional opportunities. Get Checked or Check Out, remember, is a charitable organization, that's there. They're there for us, for medical concerns, for medical research. When you're lost and don't know where to turn next, even if you're a patient or a family member or loved one, they are there to provide research options, treatment options, therapy options. So check out their website; it'll tell you all about that. But they need our help. And the original Go Black and Gold Celebrity Charity Fan Cruise, is Yeah, it's set up for us to have a blast with these Saints players, their families, fans of fellow fans and their families too. That's a lot of F words I'm not used to saying. Um, but we but we all hang out together, and it's for a good cause, for a great cause. uh Get Checked or Check Out wants to remind you that September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. Folks, that's one of the reasons I'm sequestered to my couch, is because I had a procedure done Tuesday. That's why I missed Under the Dome. So I'm still recovering. Listen, prostate cancer is one of the most common forms of cancer in men outside of non-melanoma skin cancer. It's the second leading cause of cancer deaths in men, with the first being lung cancer. Everybody, you've watched the commercials. A symptom is urination more often or a weaker flow, but that's not the only symptom. And prostate cancer often has no early symptoms, which lends itself to even more greater importance for regular checkups, regular exams, everything like that. Because if this is caught before it spreads, prostate cancer has a 97% chance survival rate. That's pretty damn good. But you have to do your own diligence, and make sure you keep those exams, make those appointments, go to them on a regular basis. They say at least once a year. You don't have to be an older male to get it either. Other factors such as family history, genetics, high intake of dairy, calcium, folic acid, or vitamin E, or simply an unhealthy diet, like many of us do have, they all increase your chances. So Get Checked or Check Out. Remember, they're there to help steer patients and families in the right direction for treatment, therapy, research, technology, and the proper care for both patients and families. So help them help you, and you can start by booking your cabin for the 2026 Original Go Black and Gold Celebrity Charity Fan Cruise. If you have any questions about it or need help getting a hold of Shireen or Summer, reach out to me. However you can. Text, email, direct message on Facebook or Twitter. I will help you in any way I can, because I cannot stress this enough. You need to go on this cruise. If you've already been, you know why you need to go back. If you've never been, take it from someone who went for the first time last year. I'm going to keep going until they ban me from going now. The cruise is just that much fun, and the cause has that much importance to not only me, but it should you too and your families.
Well said. Let's go through the comments real quick before we get out of here. John Butler, friend of the show, wants to know which one of you is Venom. I'm going to let you guess, because in my mind, I think it's very easy to pick between the two of us which one is. So
I agree.
John, let's use your spidey senses here. Let's use some common sense. I think it's Bob Rose every day of the week. Got German, Seahawks fan here, wishing you guys the best. Great shout outs for your listeners too. Thanks for tuning in.
Appreciate that.
We were informative a little bit about your team without diving too deep into it. Bob, you already teased, even though you had surgery and you're cooped up, you're still writing.
I am
still getting those articles out and letting the good people read into the mysterious mind of Bob Rose. So where can people read your work if they don't already follow you today?
Folks, you can follow all of my works along with John Sigler and a few other very talented writers on the Saints Wire. That's a USA Today publication. You can easily find our articles on the Saints Wire via Google or Siri, but they're also available on both Twitter and Facebook. As I always do, I post all of my articles on my Twitter and Facebook pages. Twitter being at BobbyR2613, Facebook being simply Bob Rose. Make sure, if you aren't already, that you are a member of our Bayou Blitz Facebook page and Bayou Blitz Twitter page. We are trying to grow both of those brands. You guys have done such a great job of helping us do that already. Get Checked or Check Out posts a lot of their latest updates on those Bayou Blitz pages as well. So make sure that you tune into those. If you're already a member, thank you so much. If you're not, click on that button right now. It's real easy to join either one, and you become a member of a select group, a group that we are going to give partake in giveaways this year. But the conditions have to be that you are members of either or the Bayou Blitz Twitter page or Facebook groups. And again, check out that website at tcynow.org. For Get Checked or Check Out. Remember that this is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, so make those appointments as soon as you can, and book that cabin for the 2026 cruise. Please, please, I would love to see you there, and it'll be an unforgettable experience, believe you me.
For myself, you can follow me everywhere right there, BT Boylan, on the Twitters and the Instagrams. You see it kind of down there, but Bob and I talked about it before we got on. October is a super busy month for your friend, even though he's not writing articles anymore. I will be all over the United States over the next 4 or 5 weeks, including a trip up to Raleigh. So any Raleigh folks that want to see me, reach out. And then also celebrating the 5th anniversary of the Dancing Bulldogs documentary. We have now a confirmed date and venue that we will be showing the film. If you guys are in the Carolinas and want to come out and support, I will be sharing that stuff here very soon. So until Sunday? Mm-hmm. Sunday evening, because it's a later kickoff for the New Orleans Saints. I hope you guys have a good rest of the week, and hopefully Bob is nice and healthy for Sunday. Hopefully I'm nice and healthy, and maybe, just maybe, for the first time in, let's do math, 9, 10 games? We see a Saints victory? 10 games? Am I right? 9 or 10? Because Rattler hasn't won a start. He's 0-8. No. Hayner got a start in between.
Mm-hmm.
That's 9.
And they lost that.
And I don't know if Carr got a win. And Carr didn't get a win when he got knocked out.
They beat the Giants, which I believe was early December. Mm-hmm. Maybe even late November, but I think it was early December.
It's been a long time. Regardless, it's been a long time since the Saints won a game. So maybe we get to talk about a win for the first time in a long time. Maybe. So until then, I hope you guys find some peace, spread love, practice positivity. We'll see you on Sunday for the post-game show. See you then.